Residential tech talk, lighting specialist, residential tech house.
All right, we are back on the Residential Tech Talks podcast, and I've joked previously that I felt like I was going to have to prevent myself from saying independent thinking podcast.
Yeah.
This was the one where I really had to make sure I didn't
really
say
make
it.
sure.
I got it right too.
Yeah.
No, but excited to be here. As we're talking out here in Indianapolis, at the Azione Unlimited Indiana Inculcation. Sitting down with Executive Director Patrick McCarthy, friend, family almost, colleague, foe. All of the above. Those that know us, that know the backstory, know how awesome it is that we get to sit down and podcast and talk and act like we're back in the old offices of the trade pubs.
Almost, 8. Is this 8 years later, or is it 10? How far are we out? What year is it?
I think 8 sounds right. 8 sounds right. 8 for what's your reference point from
when we started
working?
Yeah, when we started. I think that was
8 or 9 sounds
2016.
Right. Yeah.
So we're right there.
That's crazy, isn't it?
I guess
Look,
so.
I haven't moved. I'm back in trade media, and you're running a buying group.
I didn't go that far. We didn't go that far. I mean, if you watch all the timelines, we didn't go that far.
No.
Right?
It's crazy, though. But
yeah,
excited to be here, excited to be sitting down with you and catching up, man.
Yeah. Well, this is, and we could go on a tangent about this all day, but it's a small industry, right? This is how the circles run.
We used to joke.
And Richard always used to say, Richard Gleiss would say there's, 99 seats and 100 players. Someone stands up, someone sits down, and this is just where we are. So this will be fun to watch in another 10 years,
What's different?
What's different? What's next?
And what's the same?
Well, right? And congrats to you, buddy.
Thank you. Hey, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a big role for you. And, this is in your blood. This is in your DNA. So it's pretty cool to, watch you flourish there too.
I know. I can't get away from being behind a microphone or writing an article here or there. But I want to start a line of questioning, since that's something else I like to do, is ask questions. Inculcation, obviously carrying forward the mantle of alliteration and thesaurus diving from a predecessor that you referenced there.
Yeah.
For those that don't know the term, define it, because I want to make sure, A, that you do know what it means, and then B, let's talk about the meaning behind it.
Yeah. Well, the best part about, and you're right, we have picked very out there names and names you have to look up in a dictionary or something, and I think that's always fun. At least you can say it this time, right? And you are asking me on day 2, but that's okay. So inculcation, and I'll do it even better, because then I'll always be right. And what it means to Azione at this event,
love it. Yes,
is what we're focused on is the repetition of what we do and the mastery of repetition, and how that can be both good and bad. So I started day 1 talking about inculcation and what it means, and it really is it at its baseline, it's the repetition and instilling of knowledge through repetition, right? And how I learn and how I evolve through those repetitions. And I started with, of course, all the good habits of what you repeat, which, if you just look at it from 50,000 foot views, it's good sleep and eat well. If you start to look into the micro of our businesses, it's treat your people right, it's get better SOPs, talk to your clients. But then I started to go into what are our bad inculcations, right? And I thought that was interesting, because then I put on the board, on our PowerPoint, a bunch of things that I hear from, I talk to a lot of dealers, all the dealers in different cities, at different shows, at different countries, and wherever I meet them, right? My business is built different than that guy. There's no way I could jump into X category, lighting, energy, shading, whatever. If I only had more labor, I could do more things, right? These are the negative repetitions that I told them, I think, are hindering them. They're slowing them down, because what you repeat becomes who you are. That's your reputation. So if you want your reputation to be, I can't handle this type of work, I can't get into a new energy sector, I can't get into lighting, my business is built a little different. I said, don't raise your hands, because every single one of you have told me this. You don't even have to raise your hands. So I spent some time talking about that, how it weaves into everything we do, and how good repetition and the mastery of it is what we should be focused on right now. Not what are tariffs, not what's another economic headwind, not what are other industry and trade partners doing that are slowing us down. What can we control? What can we master? And what are we repeating on purpose? And that was like my rally cry as we started day 1. And I thought that was cool that we actually picked something and then leaned into it, and made it important and made it relevant to what we're doing this week.
I love that for many reasons. One, it's kind of a different way of saying it's a very Azione way of saying something that I've heard. I think back just a few months ago, and being a part of this team and the rallying cry back several prime times ago, even to bring up Nationwide Marketing Group, but like the back to the basics, right? And it feels similar in that you're like reminding everyone to stay on top of the things that they are great at, because you go back into that room of the integrators that are there, they're all great at a lot of things. It really comes down to a mindset of knowing that they're what they're great at, what they can control, to your point,
right?
And just remaining focused on that, because you can't control. I feel like we could get very cliche in what we're saying back and forth to one another, but like you can't control what you can't control.
That's right.
And
right.
That's spending time and energy on those things. Not worth it, right? Because where's the benefit gonna be to you or your business, your life, whatever it might be? So love that's the rallying cry.
Yeah,
here.
well, flip it on its head, right? You can control what you can control, right? And that's what we came here to do. And that was what I think is really cool. And not only about the dealers' businesses and the vendors' businesses and how the members interact with each other, but what I thought was really cool is we can also control what happens with Azione. And so then I went down into History Road, and I went back and I pulled some articles from 2012, 2013 that said, here are the top 5 trends to watch in the CI industry. And it was enterprise grade networking could be a great add-on sale, and the room started, chuckling, and it was like, security systems are really good with your home control. You should consider those. Shading would be a really good energy saver for your clients. 2012, this is the best. 2012 could be a breakout year for the cloud. And think about our jobs and living without the cloud. And that was really showing the evolution from our 2-channel into everything that we do now. Yep. But the whole point of that was to say we were focused. We've always been focusing on things, and we've always been asked to disrupt and pivot and find the new shiny object. And as an integrator, we have to be the king of everything these solutions, because everybody wants them. But it all comes back to, what are you repeating every day, right? What are you controlling? What can you control? And what are you focusing on? And I've heard this, I'm stealing someone else's thunder, but I kept telling them, you owe it to your business to survive, right? Recessions, pandemics, tariffs, we've seen it all before. There's gonna be more, and the people that survive are the ones that are controlling what they can control. And that's where we're at.
And to take it even a step further, because one of the things, like, if you think about at the heart of what all of these integrators do, what their businesses are about, ultimately the thing that they can control is that client experience too.
That's right.
And whether that's through the technology that they are putting in a customer's home, or the experience they're giving them throughout the project, from start to finish, and whether they have a positive experience with you as a business, and then ultimately with that technology that you're installing, probably one of the more important things that they can control.
Yeah, well, I think you're at the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the spear for that, because that what you have there is the photo frame of what the client experiences. And that's the end product of, I asked you to do these things and make my life better. Here's how you delivered it, right? Now, I, as the integrator business owner, have to go back and make sure my technicians know how to install it. My designers know how to put it in properly. My engineers know how to make sure those systems talk together. My sales knows how to bring up the right system, and all those SOPs and your operating practices and everything you've built in the past 15 years to make sure that engine keeps whirring and goes really quickly so you don't get caught up. You're exactly right. So you can pull out any little piece of that and say, what are you repeating and why is it excellent and how are you mastering it? And it's a cool overview.
So you mentioned the things that they, for lack of a better term, complain about, right? The tariffs, right? It's the top of mind, like, oh, these are my struggles of today.
It's low-hanging icebreakers right now.
So that's what's on the negative. What are you hearing is going well right now for them?
Well, it's going well. That's a really good question. It's especially for the Azione DNA, the profile of the client that they're helping, that market isn't really slowing down. And what's really good about seeing some of this tariff stuff come in is there is still pent up demand. And there's actually a wave of, we're all in this together sort of mentality with price raising, which is really all that's happening. If you want to strip away any other titles, this is just a price increase. the good things that are happening is there's big demand to get projects done right now. So there's a whole surge of cash coming in. And I'm just going to talk about the good side, because for every good thing I give you, there's a terrible thing happening on how to manage that cash flow and how are you taxing it and what are you looking, how are you, whatever. So all that pent up demand is great. And that means businesses are going to be really healthy. And if they can operate in a financially disciplined way, they're setting up good runways for themselves. And that's a lot better situation than we had a couple of years ago, where people were going the other way because of supply shortages. And not that that's not all coming too, but it's also making people focus, come to events like this and focus on this stuff. So there is an introspection of how is my business becoming more resilient, and how do I live through another one of these, and how do I build my SOPs? So it's kind of like eat your vegetables good, but I think that's still a good thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of healthy businesses out there still. The vendors are communicating very well with the dealers. So things like coming to an Azione event and talking to your vendors, or meeting new vendors and how are they going to help you, has been more important than ever, because they can build those relationships and help navigate whatever they're seeing and not feel like they're flying blind. So those are some of the positives that I'm hearing.
And that the point on communication, I think that's something, to hone in on not what's happening from a financial standpoint because of tariffs, but the topic of it in general. You mentioned it, everyone kind of understands we're in it together. They also understand the importance of communicating, and whether there is going to be a price increase, whatever the end result is, vendor to vendor, dealer to dealer, and then client, ultimately client to client, they understand that, maintaining that open line of communication from the client through the integrator to the vendor is ultimately, as long as you're telling me what's happening, right? I understand that something from the client's perspective, they see the news, they know what's happening, they see they could go on Amazon and see what prices are looking like there. That's right. So, I mean, they know what's happening. So I think just being open and honest with them is the thing that we've seen, and I've heard a lot about in this community, is just, being upfront about it and not shunning the fact or hiding the fact that it's, don't beat around the bush.
The best stories, integration is a full contact sport, right? So the best stories come from when the vendor and dealer team up and they say, hey, why is there surcharge on it? Well, here's the VP of sales of that vendor company. Here's the letter they wrote me. Do you want to call? We can get on a call together, because I just hung out with them in Indianapolis last week, and here's what he told me, and here's what I'm telling you. And, I'm communicating what I'm hearing what you're hearing. And it's just very dynamic, right? But it's nothing we haven't seen. We've seen all this before. There's good tactics to get through it. We have spent exactly 45 minutes talking about it, and that's it. And we said, we have to talk about it. We got to get it out of the way. I said, I encourage you to not spend the next 2 or 3 days with us asking people this icebreaker type question. It is not worth it. You can get it done on a phone call. You do not need to come here to learn that.
Yeah. The other challenge too is you said dynamic. That's the situation is very fluid right now. Obviously, no one, as we're sitting here talking, I don't know, maybe it changes by the end of the day.
Yeah, right.
But no one knows. There's a deadline at some point coming up, but the 90-day push off from whenever Liberation Day was. But it's still something, it could change in an instant. So trying to talk about it now almost seems like a fool's errand to try to get answers.
Yeah. I mean, even right now, I'm between us, I'm ready to go, here's what else, I'm just going to jump right through it. Let's crash right through it, right? Because we did it. And it was a conversation, we moved past it. And now what's really cool is as I ask these companies to look back on their history and what they're doing and what they're really good at, I was able to reflect on what Azione has been really good at and what we've been sharing, and what, from day one, we were share, trust, prosper, share good ideas, trust the people next to you, and prosper together, right? I'm adding more onto it, but it's share, trust, prosper. And what I sort of found was sticking to that. We had our first Azione meeting 2012 in Houston. On slide number 3, we showed our goals. Slide number 4, we said share, trust, prosper. And what it felt like to me is we spent 13 years asking the community, what do you want this thing to be, right? Because we have goals, we have a vision, we have things we're going to repeat and stick to. What do you guys want to see, right? Now, 13 years later, we're in the new 0.0, there's change all around us. We have new dealers faces, we have new vendor faces, we have a new community, it's growing. We have a lot of people that we've had since day one. I was seeing them in the slideshows with a microphone in their hand from 2012 saying, here's what I learned at Houston at my first Azione meeting. that are still in this room. So there's this great mix going on. And I said to them, well, what do you guys want to see change, right? I mean, not in that room, but over the past 6 months. And what we came back to is we wanted to change fundamentally the way we gather, right? And this is one of our gatherings. And normally we have 2 of these, owners, operators, and decision makers. And then we'll host some leadership symposiums for the next level down. So your technicians and operations and marketing and sales, bring them all together for a tighter conference. We said, how do we change the way that we gather and make it feel more impactful, right? Without feeling like we're taking more time out of office because, or at least getting better ROI, and changing just fundamentally. So the plan that we nailed to the wall that we think works is to go to one flagship type event that's longer, more touch points throughout instead of 3 days, let's make it 4 days. Instead of a normal hotel ballroom, let's try to do something more resort-like, or something that when you see it, you say, hey, I could stay a couple of days here because that's pretty fabulous, right? Or I'm going to bring my family. I'm going to do it all at once, right? Work hard, play hard. And we're going to work really hard, and then we can play really hard. So a flagship event that feels longer or is longer with more touch points, more premier, more marquee, so that when dealers say it, they go, I got to go to this thing, right? Then in the fall, we expand on the leadership symposiums. We have dedicated tracks. So instead of 2 sessions for 6 people, let's just make 6 sessions. And then every year, someone on your team can go to a dedicated course. And now vendors are in this mindset of, I get to see owners, decision makers, and all of those people at the flagship. And then I can talk to the rest of the team, the people that could be making decisions later in the year. And then we pump up our CEDIA party, so there's a longer touch point there. And then all of a sudden we've had a totally different way to gather without changing too much of how we budget for it, time-wise or financially. We don't have to blast dues up to do all this stuff. We can just, reallocate all of our time and commitments.
And I love to member input, obviously important in doing that. You kind of in bringing that up, almost beat me to the punch of asking. This was, we talked about it as we were kind of coming up here. You took over. Is it
October?
I was going to say
late October
months,
last
right?
year.
Yeah, so it's
right
about
before the last
half
event.
A year, a little over half a year. So, there was a fall event, and then now this is your first without.
This is the Azione team's first without Richard's fingerprint, and
which is sentimental to say.
It is sentimental.
But at the same time, it's cool because you mentioned it's like a starting point, almost like a fresh point for this group. So
it's a milestone, right? It's another milestone marker, and Richard accomplished so many milestone markers within the group that brought us here, and it's truly the momentum of what we've built that has kept us going forward, right? So it's never an event without the legacy of Richard, right? It's always his fingerprint and DNA is built into this because there's always those words of wisdom being passed along from, it feels very tribal, right? We have people who've been in the tribe for a while that are able to pass on, hey, here's what I learned 10 years ago, and this thing is alive, that's I feel like I'm just sort of steering it sometimes and maybe saying, let's try, putting the carrot this way. Hey, let's go this way. Because there's so much feedback going on. I'm like, hey, this is, let's try. There's excitement to just blow it up. And the nice part is if we know what works, we can do these things that work. And if we don't like flagship events and we don't like more symposiums, hey, I have a formula that comes right back here. We love doing this. We can keep doing this and try to spin something up now. Yeah. But evolution is important, I think.
Yeah. Well, asking in a way that makes it, I don't want it to seem like, all right, well, what's Patrick's fingerprint going to be on Azione? But I mean, when you step into a role like this, there has to be some thought to that too, right? Like,
sure.
What do you want to make it that is yours, or what kind of impact do you want to have? Like, have you thought about that, and what do you want it to be?
Yeah, I think it's my mission continues probably is an accurate way to say that. And I think my strengths as my timeline, right? And it was not an integrator. I did not work for a vendor. I worked for Portal for a small stint. I did. That's not asterisk.
Yeah, you can't say you didn't work for a vendor.
I did work for my buddies over at Portal. That's correct. But I've never been an integrator, right? So my strength has always been, let me listen, let me learn, and let me build something that you want to use, right? Let me assemble. Let me find the right partners. Let me help you help yourself, right? I can't create the blueprint. I don't have shortcuts, but I'm going to tell you where I think the right people who can build it all for you, right? And that's where it all starts. So I think if I can leave anything with the group, or when my strategic vision is cast upon the group, it's here are the partners and here are the people that are really good at what they do, right? They are pinpoint accurate snipers. I can bring them all into a room together, right? And that's how I can provide value. So if you're brand new to the group, you can start meeting new people, whether that's vendors or dealers, business coaches, anything like that. If you're seasoned and you've been in the group for a while, you can start learning with these new tools and applying them to your business because you have a foundation of knowledge from coming to these shows and talking with this network, right? And really leaning in. So my fingerprint, I think, is highly collaborative because I'm not pulling back, well, I did this 10 years ago and this is what worked for my business and now you should apply it to yours. I don't have that in my quiver, right? I don't have something that I can fire that way. What I can do is collect the CDA LMS, which is bigger, badder, better, faster, stronger. I can collect in-person training options that are out into the market now and say, hey, now you have somewhere online, now you have somewhere in person. If you want to get smarter with lighting, we've had Bruce Clark for a number of years who is now going to have his own in-person training. Those are the tools that I like to give to people, right? Those are go find some good business coaches that can help you help yourself, right? And I want to be in the background of all that, right? I want to help you shake hands with all those right people so you can help grow. So I think, I don't know, it's an interesting question. I never thought about that because I think this thing is alive and I can't say, well, they did it wrong last time because I was over there last, that was still me, right? Like, and it's been an evolution since I've been here. So, we didn't do it wrong then. We didn't always get it right back then. We're not always going to get it right in the future. And we're always, we might slip up too.
If anything, it's almost like a great example to the integrators that are members of the group because, you're doing what they should in that you're able to experiment with your model and what you do.
Right.
And, if it works, great, you lean into it. And to get back to the theme of this whole thing this week and, you lean into those strengths and the learnings and the things that you're doing right. And, if not, you pivot. And it's that simple. You're not afraid to get out there and test the waters, try new things, and, see what might work. And if it doesn't, hey, you live, learn, and grow.
Yeah, and it's right. The inculcation is the mastery of the repetition, right? And what you repeat becomes who you are. So we think that there's fundamentals that we're always going to repeat. And if you build on those fundamentals, where you're able to get people in a room so they can share ideas, you can create a network of people, you're all supporting each other. There's nothing, everything is a solvable problem, right? Everything is solvable when you have that sort of community. So it's the power of the community that I'm really leaning into, right? And I don't need to be association or designed by association where I think a Subway, me and 300 of my best friends are making a Subway sandwich, right? Like I'll have the final call on what I think and I need to process on some of this. But I'm just eyes wide open, 2 ears, one mouth. We're really into a lot of buzzwords, but I'm trying to listen twice as much as I talk, right? And I think I have to because again, I don't have I pulled up the slide from 2012 and I said, you guys want to guess what grade I was in? And someone said middle school. I didn't appreciate that.
That's not nice.
I trust them and they trust me to, find the right decisions, ask enough people and make the right informed decisions and kind of pivot accordingly. And I think we just keep building on that. And if I do this thing right, and the team gets this right at Azione, it could be anybody with a good vision in this seat. And it's just, making sure we listen to the members because that's what it's for. Vendors and dealers and members, and that's what we run this thing for.
No, that's awesome. You've grown so much,
boy.
I know. Since our connected design.
When I graduate high school next week, they're going to be so proud of me.
Oh, that's so awesome. No, it's really cool to see. And, I know we've done this before, but, it doesn't make it any less awesome to be able to sit down with you and chat about, what's going on today and, where you guys are heading in the future. And it's a story, obviously, we're going to continue to follow.
It's a small industry and it's super fun. Like I said, people get up and they sit down and, you said it in your first interview, you're following the footsteps of our best friend, Jeremy Glowacki. I'll never forget his joke. I want to start a band called the Mike Checks and just go up and 1, 2, thank you. That was like the funniest thing. That was the first conference I had with him.
So good.
But there's always just great people around it. And I appreciate you kind of coming here and watching us all grow too. And that's the evolution, right? And
I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun as we wrap up this week here in Indy.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm certain we'll be catching up again down the line.
That's right. That's right.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Residential Tech Talks podcast, please subscribe to us on the platform you're listening on. Also, be sure to follow Residential Tech Today on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Residential Tech Talk. Lighting specialist to our residential tech.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.